Woo!
Get it off. Start off with a bang. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for our training that we are also recording for other purposes. If you don't mind if your voices are on the internet.
Do we want to explain why we're recording?
Yeah.
So we this is an adaptation of what was used to be called personal planning training that was given at Sprog every year, but it wasn't super great. It had a lot of things missing from it, and so we have made it into a more personal productivity / fulfillment training, and it's never been given at a Sprog before, and we're changing the base template so that all 6 Sprogs across the country will give it this new way. But the people that are training on it have never received it this way and don't know the material. So we are going to try giving it and recording it so that they can receive it and so they can train on it.
Yep. So we might give you some instructions that are like, break into groups of 3. And there's only like 5 of you here, so we might modify it, but we're still going to say the instructions the way we'd like our wonderful other trainers to hear. Sweet. Cool. I'm going to close this door. Am I doing the first section?
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, we both did.
So if y'all could get out some paper and something to write with, if you don't already have that out.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, like Zach said, this training, it also can be thought of as somewhat of a self-care training, like a little bit less so than another adaptation of it, but this is a lot of focus on ourselves rather than most things given at Sprog are like, how can we organize the best way possible, and this is going to be about how can we be better, more productive, how can we find fulfillment, how can we strive towards our goals, and that being our contribution to the movement, rather than just like, okay, we have to be the best organizers, and that's the only contribution we can have, like by being our best selves, we can also contribute to the movement in that way. So the main purpose of this training is to think about where our energy is currently being put, and how conscious we're being of that energy, and time, and money, and all these things, and how we can direct them towards the best ways possible and do it as efficiently as possible. So, to get started, on that piece of paper, could you please make a list of all of your commitments in life? So these can include things like sports, organizations you work with, school, yourself, family, things like that, clubs, exercise, personal projects, hobbies. Just make a list.
Should this be specific or broad?
Whatever you want to do.
Whatever commitments you keep in your head as a chunk of things.
Don't say like organizations. I should probably say the names of the organizations.
Social change is one.
Wait. Okay. I mean, my question was more like organization or all the campaigns associated with that organization that you're working on.
That's your call. Yep. How do you think of it?
Good question.
Okay, so when you're done with that list, put a star next to the things that you spend the most time on.
Wait, the one thing?
No, you could do a couple of things. It depends on how long your list is, but like whatever you feel like you spend more time on than the other things.
And as you're doing this, the rest of this activity is just to observe, not to, react to. We're going to have some time for reactions later, but next few steps just be observant.
And when you're done with that, underline the things that you value the most, or have the most value to you, or the most important to you.
Cool. So now, we're going to have you all draw and graph. Bottom axis is going to be importance, how important something is to you. Importance to you. And this graph is going to be time spent. And high, low, high. And go ahead and plot the things you wrote. So if you put a star next to something saying you spent a lot of time on it, you put it somewhat higher on the list. If you didn't put a star next to it, it might be lower on the list. If you didn't underline something, it might be over here. If you underline something, it might be over here. So I might put, my job up here because I put a lot of time into it and maybe it's not very important to me. And I might put, volunteering with Osberg over here because it's pretty important to me, but I don't get around to it very often. And I might say, Summer Solutions is up here because that's the project I work on all the time and it's really important to me. So just, your dots can be anywhere on the circle or on the grid graph thing. Just take maybe 3 minutes and looking at what you started and what you underlined. Find a place for all your movements on this graph. And again, remember that we're just observing. Have a chance to react later. Cool. So finish putting down your last couple if you're still plotting them on your graph. But the next step is to draw a diagonal line through your graph. And we're going to call this the line of fulfillment line. And so the reason being that, things that are most important to you, you put the most time into, probably bring you a lot of fulfillment. Things that are sort of moderately important, you spend a medium amount of time, that's fulfilling. And we'll take a look at what it means to be off of the fulfillment line in a second. The next thing you can draw on your graph is kind of like a little semicircle up here, a little semicircle down here. And for the purposes of this activity, we're going to call those the valleys of burnout. So again, if you're putting tons of time into something that's very not important to you, does not necessarily mean anything. It means whatever it means to you, but what it can mean is that that's a place where you could take a look and observe what's there and what does it mean to me for that to be there, and is this a place where I could be burning out or have the potential for burnout? And same thing down here. You put very little time into something you care about a ton. Another similar situation. Could be for you. So we're going to take a couple minutes, about 5 minutes, and break into small groups of one group of 3 and one group of 2. But for the purposes of our Sprog trainers, it'd be groups of 3 to 4. And I will write up questions up here, but I'll also say them really quick. Actually, do you want to read them? Write them.
So, what patterns do you notice while observing your time movements in this way? How did you react to those observations? And what would it be like for you to move some of your obligations closer to the fulfillment line? So, just discuss in the group of 3 and the group of 2 for movements.
Yeah, no, that's it. Welcome back to the activity.
Woo!
From the activity. And please do, like Charles was mentioning, write down whatever someone was mentioning. If you can write down your feedback and have it all at the end as you're like experiencing this, where we still have a chance to put in improvements before this is sent out to every Sprog. So what we're going to do is take 2 or 3 report backs from the group of just kind of like what was striking to you, or what did you find interesting as you were having your small group discussions along these questions. Charles.
So in some cases, it lined up really well on my fulfillment line, where like, because when things intertwine, like my friends have become more important to me because they're all like associated in my circle of other things that are important to me. And so that when I'm spending time on that, I'm spending time on the other things. So it's kind of like 2 for 1. And like, so I kind of like moved it up where it's family, which is kind of the same connection of like, you know, personal relationships is kind of lower on like the time spent because they're not intertwined in those other circles of things that are important to me.
Right. So the things that all have high importance end up getting connected, like you organize with your friends. And kind of getting
which makes my friends more important to me, and I spend more time with them.
Right. So it's kind of like a feedback.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. What other observations?
I think it's really cool to like, see it as kind of a snapshot. We have all this, and like a couple of us were talking about, oh, this is going to be so different during summer, or like, oh, I know this is going to change, like the deadline right now or something. So to see like how your priorities and commitments will switch.
Yeah, I added like an arrow for stuff that like is important but appears to be off the fulfillment line because it just hasn't started yet or something.
Yeah. Be cool to see like over time and see dots.
Time.
Google has a thing that will do that. Right? That'd be really cool. Of course they do. Any other reactions?
Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So just keep these things in mind as we move through the rest of the activity, just to frame the rest of the things we're thinking about.
Yeah. So the next section of the activity is, take one of these, don't look at the back yet. The next section of the activity is on time management. So by looking at, it can be hard to change how important something is to you, but what we can change is how much time we spend on maybe things that do waste our time, or how much time we spend on things that are less important to us. So this is about how we can use our time more effectively so we are fulfilled. So the basic idea is that the amount of things we could do could do an infinite number of things. There's no really limit on that, but the number of things you can do and the amount of time and attention that you have are finite amounts. And so you can think of your day or you think of your time as a box, and each thing that you need to do, each task, as a block of different sizes based on how much time it takes. And you only have so many blocks that you can fit into your box at a time. And so if you put a crappy block in that's just like a waste of time, then that means that one really awesome block can't fit in anymore. So what time management is just thinking about what we decide goes into our box. So think for a minute about how much you try to fit into your box every day, and what, like, at the end of the day, looking back on, like, maybe just the rest of the earlier part of today, or, like, yesterday, like, what did you end up fitting in your box? Just think. And think about how did those things, like, how did you decide that those things for what you're going to put your time into. Because so oftentimes it's just the first person that emails you or emails me is the thing that then that's now in my box for the next day because they emailed me after a meeting, or the first person that asked me about something. And we often don't actually consciously decide on what we're going to be working on and what we're going to be putting our time into, and it just kind of first come, first serve, which may or may not be the way that you want to allocate your time. So we're going to go into a couple steps and patterns for how to manage your time more effectively, and it's just to make a conscious decision about what we're putting our time into. It's not to say what you're putting your time into is bad or not or good, but to figure out just so you're thinking about and make conscious decisions. So the first thing on the sheet is identifying geeks. This is just time sinks, time that you spend procrastinating, time that you spend on Facebook, watching videos, just sitting around somewhere and talking when you mean to be working. The idea is that if you identify like where the time leaks away, then you can start plugging those gaps and having more time for the things you actually care about. Does that make sense? Governing access, kind of like what I said about getting an email and then immediately that's something, a commitment that I have to have. Not allowing 100% access to yourself at all times, because then you end up with no time for yourself or no time for homework or whatever it is that you need to get done during the day because you're always giving it to other people. And I always end up giving myself to other people all the time, and then I have like a couple hours at midnight to 2 o'clock to actually get other things done. And the other thing that we're going to be talking about next, related to this, is email and like things like text messages and notifications on your phone. This technology that we have has basically made us completely open to interruption at all times. Anytime, like in this room right now, you can get a text message and someone is interrupting what you're doing right now from anywhere in the world. So governing the access of when people are able to contact you and when people are able to interrupt you can help lead to much greater productivity. Minimizing notifications is similar to that. If it's, I used to get a ding whenever I got an email, and then I would be like, oh, I have an email, and I go check. And then that would distract from everything else that I was doing for those couple minutes, and then it takes like 7 minutes to refocus your energy on what it was you were doing beforehand. Working in dashes is a really good way to continue to be productive. That means just like saying, okay, it's especially good if you procrastinate a lot. Just saying, I'm going to work on this for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. I'm going to work on this for 10 minutes and then take a 2-minute break. Or some negotiation with yourself that allows you to get things done and not take on a huge amount of work, and to break tasks up into smaller pieces. So that it's really easy to get started on something if you know you're only going to be working on it for 25 minutes. And then the last one is renegotiating, which is if someone else gives you a task or if there's something that you need to do, renegotiating that task to make it something that you're more able to do or more happy to do and make it an awesome block of time. So that could just be like saying, oh, can I do that tomorrow? Or could I delegate this to someone else? Or could I do it in a slightly different way that makes it better? So any questions on the patterns for time management, just to get us thinking about how we choose to allocate our time? Cool. So the next part is inbox zero and how we manage email. And I know a lot of you are going to know this already, but we're going to do it anyway. So just really quickly, why do you check your email? Just tell me. To get information. Yes. Anything else?
Obsession.
What?
Obsession.
obsession with email.
I mean, I think the common thing with parents become obsessed with it and always checking it.
Why do you think that is?
Well, they want information and like,
What?
It's an obligation.
it's also like instant gratification or something. It's kind of the sense of like, oh, there's some piece of information there, like every 5 minutes or something.
Totally. It's kind of like a little bit of importance. Like, hey, someone's talking to me. Someone's saying this thing. You get a little bit of endorphin. It's like someone's talking to you. For sure. Why do you avoid or why do you not like checking your email?
Some email you something to do, and then you have to do something.
Yeah, you could get a new commitment. You could have something else you need to do. Yeah.
I mean, this is how it used to be, like, they fixed the problem. But it used to be, like, it was kind of overwhelming. It was like, I felt like there's no organization to it. I didn't, like, there was a lot of stuff that I was supposed to be following up on. I couldn't, like, organize it. I didn't know, like, so it was all this stuff that I needed to do that I wasn't doing.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to go about it.
It's just like a big, scary to-do list that you didn't know was ever going to be in there and what new commitments to that. And you
Old
check
stuff
it.
that I was forgetting about that I postponed.
Yeah.
And
If you don't look at it, then it's not there, right?
That's true.
Cool. So those are exactly the problems, the issues that Inbox Zero is meant to address. Just a very simple way of thinking about email and the way of doing email. It's not like a program or anything. It's just a way of thinking about it to help so that it's not scary and doesn't take up a ton of time checking email all the time, every day. And so it too has a set of principles. The first principle is processing to zero. So every time you check your email, you process all of the emails in your inbox until there's nothing, so you have 0 emails in your box. And processing doesn't mean responding to all of them or doing all of them. It means processing. We'll go into what that means in a minute. Sorry. So processing can be a number of different things that I'm going to skip ahead to. So you can either, the different verbs of Inbox Zero are delete, delegate, respond, defer, and do. So when you process, you just look at each one and quickly evaluate, is this important? If it's not important at all, you can just delete it or archive it. Delegate it to someone else if it's not something that you need to do. If it's a really quick, easy thing that's just like a quick question or something that's really easy, you just respond in a couple minutes and just get it out of the way. Defer, which would be kind of putting it in something that you could look at later, so like a to-do list or something would be defer. And then do it. If it's just a quick action you need to take, someone you need to call or something you need to do, just do it right then, and then it's out of your mind and out of your way. The idea is that when you're processing, only check your email when you have enough time to process however many emails you have and to take care of all of them all at once.
Do those 5 verbs make sense? Are there any questions on how they relate to one another or differences between them or anything?
And they're all.
For those of you who are already doing Inbox Zero, is this how you're thinking of it still?
I got rid of my defer.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So for the people in video land, one of our audience members said she got rid of defer and is just doing it instead of deferring it to other folks.
Yeah, so it's more than just checking it and just looking at it and seeing that it's there, and it's less than responding to it, because it's kind of a little bit of both. It's just processing to 0. So the second one is don't check it unless you're ready to process it to 0. Just leave it there, because otherwise you'll just be back to checking and you'll be like, oh, I have another email, and then it becomes that scary thing that you don't want to check again because you know there's lots of items that you have to do in there.
And one thing that's not on here that we'll add is when you're processing, start from the bottom. Because if you don't start from the bottom, if you're always checking from the top and you end up, oh, I checked my email, but I didn't have time to get to all of them. I closed my email. You're always checking the first 10, but you're getting 20. Every time you open your inbox, you get this big stack up at the end that get forgotten. Whereas if you start from the bottom and work your way up, you have motivation to actually get to the new ones and make sure nothing gets left behind.
Yes. Automating as much as possible. So there's probably emails you get from different listservs or from Facebook or from other things that aren't actually important and aren't actually things that you need to look at all the time. And so filtering as many of those as you can, using almost every email client has a filtering feature where you can say if it's from this address, then it goes to this folder. So I move all of the emails I get from every nonprofit organization into a lists folder, and then I just check that once every 2 days or so and take all of the actions or write all the letters or whatever it says in them. Because those aren't important to me in the middle of the day. They're only important every once in a while. Same with Facebook notifications. They're not the most important thing that I get in my email, but I want to let them know. So filtering out everything that you can to make your inbox as relevant to you as possible, so it doesn't have all other things. And that also includes just taking yourself off of lists that you never look at, because it's a waste of time to do them.
And I think for me, it's the reason why that's really powerful is that when you can open your inbox and just see things that are super, super relevant, it's exciting. It's like a relief or something, where it's just it does represent things you need to do, but it's very clear that these are only things I need to do, and I don't see a number that says 200, and I have to sort through and where's the 5 pieces of gold that I actually care about, a needle in the haystack kind of thing.
It's always really cool when it says downloading 40 emails and only 5 actually end up in my inbox. Everything else got sorted away. And then kind of along with all these other things is using Gmail or Apple Mail or some other good email service that allows you to filter things and have archive buttons and all of that stuff. It's very, really helpful, really very, very, very helpful, because it just makes all of email flow better and flow more easily. So, argument over the verbs. The last part of this is it's also helpful to identify reasons why you leave things in your inbox or why you used to leave things in your inbox, so you're not going to do that anymore. And then you can have a new folder for each one of those things. So the suggested folders are archive, if you're in Apple Mail, or in Gmail, you can just press the archive button and it automatically goes there. Take action or respond or to do or something like that, which is something that you're deferred until later that you know you need to get to. And
Whereas a waiting reply is saying, this is really important, I emailed someone, they need to email me back with information, and if they don't email me, I go to my waiting reply thing once a day or once a week and sort through them and be like, cool, this person hasn't replied in a week, this person hasn't replied in a week, and they're urgent, and they're important to me, so I'm going to reply to them again and give them a little nudge.
yeah. And you can also have other folders for whatever you need them for, based on who you actually use. The idea is not to have a folder for every little sub piece of your life, because then you just spend too much time just deciding where things are supposed to go instead of actually doing them. So just making them relevant and folders you would actually click on and actually use. That's the idea. Yeah, other tips for Inbox Zero is to not leave your email open all day. Only check it when you want to check it, and when you need to check it. Doing email dashes along with that. Yeah. And these principles, the principles of having an inbox, dealing with things quickly, sorting them into different folders, or deferring them, can be applied to other things too. It can be applied to like to-do lists, where you get new items in your to-do list and you sort them into like things that you're waiting on, or urgent items, or fun items. Could be different pieces of to-do list that you can sort things into. I also use it for Google Docs and organizing my Google Docs. I use kind of like Inbox Zero, where when things come in, I get shared on Google Docs. I can put them into folders. Chris. So, any questions on Inbox Zero? Cool. A couple other like just helpful productivity, time management tools that many of you already know are LeechBlock or other things like LeechBlock for your web browser, where you can block specific websites at specific times. There's lots of customization. So like I set it up so I can only be on Facebook 30 minutes a day, and then it blocks it after 30 minutes. Or you can also just turn it on, like I need to write a paper, so I'm going to block this for 2 hours, and then it doesn't, you go to the page until the time runs up. And it's really helpful for just getting to business and getting things done. Doodle, You Can Book Me, and When Is Good are all great time scheduling things that many of you already know. Yeah, and the most important thing for all of these systems is that to only use what works for you, to adapt things, even just a bunch of ideas, and to just choose one, try it out, and if it doesn't work, then you should try something else. And to actually try it, like setting up a to-do list or setting up an Inbox Zero and then never actually doing it or never actually checking it or checking your to-do list makes it like worthless and just a waste of time to set up. So choosing a system and then sticking with it and seeing if it works. So, good.
Cool. So we're going to do a quick worksheet, which is actually on the back of the handout that you have. And this is called a likes and intentions worksheet, similar to the graph that you did at the beginning of this workshop. It's going to be a snapshot in time. So we're going to take a minute to go down this list and, don't worry about the past and how important something has been to you in the past. Don't worry too much about the future, but just right now, how important would you rate each of these things? 5 being very important, and I totally want to be a contributor to my community, or I really want to be physically fit and healthy. 1 being, this just isn't a priority for me right now. Maybe it will be later in my life. Again, this doesn't have to reflect how much you're actually doing that thing. It's how important it is to you. And before you get into it, before you start rating it, I want to frame the word success. It uses the word success a lot in there, and I think it's really easy for us to have like a societal definition of success is famous, or financially successful is rich, tons of money. But for this activity, let's use a definition of success in terms of doing what you said you do with ease. So financially successful, rather than saying I have tons of money, is I said that I'm going to set a budget, and I set a budget, and I'm following the budget. And right then and there, you're financially successful, and use that definition of success. And we'll have like 3 or 4 minutes to run through and rank all of these 1 to 5. So keep these life's intentions in mind as we talk a little bit about goals. So we're going to be talking about goals in terms of like personal goals, life goals. So does anyone want to give a definition of maybe how they've heard goals defined or criteria for goals before? No right answer, just whatever. Smart goals? Yeah. What are SMART goals? Yeah. Any other like understandings of goals that you all have? So a finish line for an area of your life. So we're going to use the definition of goal for in this understanding of what personal life goals can look like. That might be a little bit different than what you've seen before, but I might also see a lot of overlap. So a goal is an expression. A goal is an expression of a life's intention. Thank you. Anyway, so it's an expression of a life's intention. So rather than a goal just being like, oh, I want to do this, we're going to think of goals as something that's tied to one of those things on that list that at that moment you rated a 4 or 5. And again, life's intentions change throughout time, and so where you'll base your goals will change throughout time as well. So an example of that is if your life's intention is to be a creator of beauty, you might publish a book of your own poetry. You might self-publish a book or start a blog of your own poetry or something. So in this definition, if something brings you joy, it is a goal. And if something brings you relief, it is a task. So an example of that, I didn't write down. So an example of that might be if your goal is to get elected to ASUO student government, then your task might be, canvassing. That might be one of your tasks, and I have to go get the contact information for 50 people through canvassing. And canvassing might bring you a lot of stress. When you get it done, you feel relieved. But when you get elected to student government, you're like, woo! So and it's not the other way around. It's not, if it is a goal, it brings me joy. And if it is a task, it brings me relief. It's more the other way around. Like, if I can think about this thing and think it will bring me joy, that's how I know that I'm along the lines of a goal. Under this definition, it is a one-time event. So rather than thinking of a goal as something that, if your life's intention is to be physically fit and healthy, running 3 miles a day isn't a goal under this definition. It is, however, saying that I'm going to run a half marathon by a certain date. That could be a goal for you that's in line with life's intention. And the reason that is because if you set a goal of running, 3 miles a day, and you don't do that one day, and maybe you don't do that for a couple days, or maybe you miss it here and there, it sort of becomes unclear whether you're meeting that goal or that this obligation you've set to yourself. But when you have a goal that's completed, it's done, and you move on to your next goal, it's very clear, like, I completed it or I didn't, and I'm now setting another goal for myself. So setting goals that finish are really key. It is positive. So we don't set goals that are like, I'm going to stop doing this. Instead, we say we're going to start doing something. So instead of saying I'm going to stop smoking or something, you could say I'm going to go swim 10 laps in 5 minutes. And there's no way that you can do that until you quit smoking. But if to get to that goal that's going to bring you a lot of joy when you swim 10 laps in 5 minutes or whatever, you have to quit smoking. And then, as Tara mentioned before, under this definition, there are also SMART goals. So I think everyone in this room is familiar with SMART goals, I imagine. But as a refresher, SMART goals are specific. So we don't say, oh, I'm going to go hiking somewhere by this date. You say, I'm going to go hiking in this specific place by this date. They're measurable, so you know whether you've done it or not, or how close you got to doing it. They're attainable, meaning they're a stretch, but they're not impossible. So they're not really comfortable, and they're not like way beyond the realm of possibility, but they're right in between. They're relevant, and in this way, relevant means relevant to a life's intention. So it's grounded, kind of based in that life's intention. And time-bound, has a date, very specific date, not a month, not a week, but a day, by which you will have completed it, and you can always complete it before then, and that's kick ass. And so all these criteria, the reason they help is because it's all to get us focused on what we do want to do and make it really, really doable, and make it a place where we want to pour our energy. And if any of these criteria are missing, it's almost like having a basket where we're pouring energy and time and money and physical vitality, we're pouring all our energies into, and if some of these are missing, it's like a little hole in the bucket where you're sort of slowly draining energy out. If it's not smart, or if it's a negative goal, then it's kind of like, oh, I'm putting energy towards this, but I'm just stopping something, and like, why do I want to stop something? Same with one-time event. If I do it, but I miss it once, it's kind of like, should I be excited about this anymore? Am I achieving what I told myself I'd achieve? Does this make sense? Any questions about these criteria or reactions? Is that you? You look like you're thinking something. No? Okay. Cool. So we're going to go into an activity where we're setting goals under these definitions. And this is kind of where the self-care elements of this training come in, because the goals we're going to set are going to be really, really, really fun goals. There are other goals that we can set that are slightly less fun, that don't rank like an 8 or a 9 or a 10 on the fun factor. But for this activity, to practice these methods and to just bring some elements of self-care into our life, where we're just truly bringing like maximum amounts of joy. For this activity, we're going to set some fun goals. So I'm going to explain the activity and then we can break out and do it. So you're going to pick a life's intention that you rated a 5. There are definitely other goals. You can always pick goals that are rated a 4 or maybe a 3. But for now, we're just going to pick one that's rated a 5. We're going to pick something that you can do in the next 5. We're going to pick something that you can do in the next 3 to 6 months. So not something that you do by the time you're 50. And it's going to be fun. And these are all just for this activity. Yeah, and so if you're thinking of a goal during this activity and you think, maybe this isn't super, super fun, super joyous and exciting, you know, that is a goal you can have and you can set that during this activity, but maybe set that aside for now, write it down for yourself, set it for yourself, commit to it, but also pick one that you can rank really highly on the fun factor. So we're going to spend 4 minutes. Oh, also I should note that you're going to be sharing these goals, so please write something you're comfortable sharing with a partner. And you're going to have 4 minutes to just, you know, pick a life's intentions, pick a goal, and try and fit it into these criteria. And write it down for yourself. And write down which life's intention it is based in. Does that make sense? Clear? Any questions? Super. Cool. So wrap those up. And take 3 minutes to pair up. There are now 6 people here, so that works well. And talk, you know, share your goals, say it out loud, bring it into the world in that way, and take a moment to talk about it and why it's important. And also, if you know, sharing it with a partner is a chance for your partner to kind of look over and maybe say, hey, that's not a specific date, that's a whole month or something, or could you make that more specific and give sort of constructive feedback. But mostly we're just bringing our goals one step closer to physical reality by sharing them. So make sure you share what life's intention is based on and what the goal is. And pair up, and you'll have 3 minutes. So wrap up your discussions. So we're gonna take a minute. You all have brought all your goals one step closer to reality by sharing them with someone else, and someone else knows that commitment is something that you're making. And we're going to take a minute, and we don't have time for everyone to share, but we're going to take 2 or 3, maybe 4 share backs from the group of just what was your goal and what was your life's intention. Who would like to share? Travis?
My goal was for the Eugene Summer Campus Office to raise over $117,000 by the end of the summer, which was our office goal.
$117,000 by the end of the summer. Is that fun?
Yeah.
Yeah? You would. Okay, cool. Sounds good.
What's the intention of
Oh, politically active.
Be politically active. Cool.
We're raising money around political issues.
Right. Yes. Cool. What else?
I go.
Sarah, then Chris.
For being an effective teacher, I lead 4 trainings at least 4 trainings during our summer session.
I'm just going to repeat it. So to be an effective teacher, you lead 4 trainings by the end of the summer? By June. 4 things. Cool. Can you put a date on it?
The regional launch Saturday is June 24th.
June 24th to 29th, you lead 4 trainings to be an effective teacher. Awesome. And I forgot to mention this before, that was framed in the present tense. So it's not saying, I will do this, but I lead 4 trainings, which kind of gets you a little bit more into the moment of actually being there and leading 4 trainings. You can see a little bit more than I will eventually. So one more. Chris.
So this means we're working, but by July, I will find a summer job where I can get paid to enhance my community, practice productivity, and become a better leader.
So by July 10th, you will find a summer job to be a better communicator, increase productivity, and enhance your community. And what life's intention is that? To be a contributor to your community. Cool. Awesome. So Chris and I already talked a little bit about it, but I think what I was asking myself when setting a goal to be really good on the measurable and specific is, how will I know if I did this? Will I be able, after it's happened, will I know whether I did it? And what's that?
When do I have a party?
When do I have a party? And so we get our goals as close to, as specific and as measurable as possible, so that when we complete it, we either know I didn't complete it, and that's okay, and I set another goal, or I definitely completed it. And some of the things in Chris's are definitely good and things to be striving for, but probably could be made more specific and measurable, so that, well, how do we know if it's one where he's going to be increasing his communication skills or not? Maybe we don't. Maybe we need to reframe it a little bit. But those are all great. Thank you so much for sharing and bringing those closer to reality. And I hope that you all choose to, really actually make those commitments, and they weren't just something that you did for the activity. Because it's great to bring fun goals into reality. So I'm going to talk for a minute about life coaching, and then we're going to move into a debrief. For all you trainers watching at home, this is an optional section. So especially this last section, this is kind of like Zach and I's personal exploration through life. It's been a lot of this. The productivity stuff is stuff we read all the time, and the second half is all based in the teachings of life coaching, and a particular model of life coaching. Life coaching is a way for you to have a formal relationship with a life coach who is there to walk beside you and support you in striving towards your goals. So rather than, unlike counseling and therapy, which is very backwards focused and focused on healing and something that has happened in your past, life coaching is very forward focused, saying, what are your goals? What are your life's intentions? And what are the obstacles to getting towards those goals? There's a lot of concepts about understanding your brain and the barriers that you put up in your brain, and the doubt and the worry and the excuses and all these things that come up. And so I just want to take an opportunity to say that this has been something that's been extremely transformational in my own life, and that as people who are all engaged in social change work, there's a specific hub of life coaches just for y'all. It's called coachingforsocialchange.org. It's a website made by the wonderful Zoe Toby that I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to meet, but he's a awesome dude in the youth climate movement from the early days, which means like 5 years ago. And it's a hub of coaches who give discounted or pro bono rates to folks doing social change work, because especially young people doing social change work because they believe in it that much. And it's really low commitment to try it out. It just involves like one call with a couple different coaches to compare them, and it's a consultation call and it's free. I can't recommend it highly enough, and to check out whether it's right for you. Might not be right for everyone, but totally transformational for me in my ability to understand my own brain and get away from my doubts and worries and strive more boldly towards my goals. And Zach's doing as well, and we can both talk to you about it anytime. Any questions on life coaching really quick? What it is, why you would do it?
So, a couple different questions to think about, and we'll talk about. What actions are you going to take in the next week to move your commitments more towards the fulfillment line? Anyone? Yeah. Look at the trainings. Good.
Read the training.
The fulfillment line is the first activity.
And that's good too.
Yeah, I think that's a later question.
I will call my parents.
Awesome. Anything else? So what one sentence lessons are you going to be taking away from this training?
Leave time for things that are important to you. Yeah. Goals that start something instead of stop something. Yeah. Got it.
Anything else?
What else you got?
Didn't learn anything else in an hour and 10 minutes?
I just can't put it all in one sentence.
Two sentences.
Part of it was
Spending time on things I care about, like identifying leaks.
Definitely.
It's okay to say no to people.
Yeah. Huge one. I know a lot of folks who it's always something they're growing in.
And to one part that I forgot to say is to appreciate it when people say no to you is a big part of it. Like it's seeing those behaviors of like limiting interruptions and limiting access and all those things, and appreciating it in other people instead of like trying to guilt trip them.
Building that culture into the groups and teams that we work on. Cool. So kind of a two-part question, and we can just answer both at the same time, but what parts of this training did you struggle with the most, and what parts did you enjoy the most?
I like doing
I really liked doing the time commitment chart, but it was also really hard to like be honest and think about where my time goes and what I care about more.
Yeah.
Identifying like commitments and like concise separate things was a struggle.
a pencil would be nice for your kids to have to I was like, oh, but the perspective of that. I really liked the like
you like better?
Just sort of like more generalizing conceptual goals first, and like I have all these concrete goals, but where I do this really versus like something that I need to do.
Yeah, it's a really good point. The idea of life's intentions are to be separate from goals, really intentionally separate. That like you can't ever really complete being a contributor to your community. It might become less of a priority to you, and you fulfill a certain amount of that intention, and you're okay setting it aside as a 4 or 3 or something, but it's never done. It's always something you're doing more. Creative beauty is always a 5 for you your whole life. It's probably going to die with it, a 5 on your life, and it's not like check off, done. So, definitely. So, and really quick, just for last bits of feedback, are there any things that you would just like sort of looking at this as a training, and a lot of you have delivered trainings, maybe all of you have. Is there anything you changed or felt could have been better, or just like looking at the delivery or the content of the training?
To be honest.
Yes, please.
I feel like going over the inbox 0 and the managing your time and attention went really well after that chart, but the inbox 0 seemed,
Out of place.
yeah. I just felt I can't suggest.
Would reordering it have? Do you think it just doesn't make sense in this training, or do you think if we put like inbox 0 graph life's intentions, would that work? We debated over this a lot. Cool.
Does anyone else have any feelings about that?
I feel like it almost just doesn't fit in this training.
Yeah.
But it's awesome and really important and like helpful.
It is like
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm trying to think of where it would have
Yeah.
been in a better place, but I can't quite identify that. But at the same time, I don't really want to take it out because I feel like it's a really important aspect. It's like a tool
Yeah, it's a great
to
point.
making sure everything else on this goes well and you use it kind of effectively.
Do you think we just framed the training? Because I mean, whether it fits in the training depends on what the training is. If we just framed it more as like, here is a tool for getting barriers out of your way. This is inbox 0. Here is a way to strive towards what you want to do. Because that's how we were thinking of it. That it made
Yeah,
sense
we
to us.
explained it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is like all these other things feel like they're concepts and like
Mm-hmm.
ideas that you're like, oh, here's how to think about my time, here's how to know if I'm doing things effectively, versus this is a very specific tool to use your time effectively.
Yeah, so I think if we had done objectives, like the objectives of this training would probably be like identifying where your time currently is, learning how to better manage your time, like tools for how to effectively manage your time, and then identifying your goals or something like that, like some goals.
Yeah.
And with that, if we start with that, it's like this training is both. It's like half time management and like reducing time wasted, and then the other half like identifying things that are really important. And if we start with that, would that maybe make it fit better? Cool.
I wasn't here for the beginning part, but I'm not, like, it seems sort of low energy, and I'm not sure if there were any like aha moments. So maybe incorporate some sort of activity where there's like an aha moment, or maybe ask participants to bring a list of things that they're currently working on, and they can sort of like an effective to-do list or something like that. There's some sort of activity that's more aha.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Something that's like a really, really crystallized idea.
First of all,
Chris gets to give this training, so that's wrong.
I would have liked to have had more time to like make my graph and like identify commitments in my life and stuff. Or maybe if you didn't say, the other thing is if you didn't say commitment but you said something else, like where your time goes, or like, I don't know, something else. It's like I don't think of Facebook or email as commitment, but that's something I do spend a lot of time doing.
Right.
So it's like, I think I would maybe make my graph more accurate.
Yeah, there's two sides of that struggle. One is getting things that you don't actually, that are very low on the important, like Facebook, email, but you spend a lot of time on. And then there's the other side of, well, maybe I don't see my friends at all right now, and it's really important to me, but I don't spend any time on it. So there's like really high to low important and really low time, but really high on the important thing. It really, really ends on the two ends of the graph, I guess. That,
I think the way of like framing it for that too is doing it and saying like this is just to get you thinking. Like we really suggest you make another one of these charts on your own.
Or you can make one regularly. We will suggest that, and then you could see how it changes over time.
Yes. Put it into Google. Have it.
Would be really, I think it'd be really interesting to be like, oh, I spend more time on this now, and now I spend less, and like it's be really like probably things would go up, and you'd spend more and more and more time on them, and then become less and less important. You know, bring it on.
Okay, if you could get a time lapse of that before you do this training again, it would be so awesome. Spend all of your time on that.
Yeah. Lots of time.
This training.
It's time lapse.
Any last bits of things before feedback before this gets sent to over hundreds of Sproggers this summer?
Hello.
Hello.
Was it good? Was it worth the time? Did you learn things?
Going to implement things in your own life based on any of this?
How about a 500 shoot?
Yeah.
So 5 was
I'm going to modify things in my life a lot
based on this training.
based on this training.
It's very specific.
And 1 is nothing is going to change at all in my life. So put a finger in screw and it was
I think for me as well, like this was a good break for me to actually think about all of these different time commitments and have a chunk unlock like
Do you think this would be useful for people that are maybe not as active as you all already are? But like people at Sprog are kind of like just getting into, some of them are just getting into activism? Or will be after being in Sprog?
I feel like the second part of the training will be a lot like identifying, like setting goals, like identifying what's important to you, and the graph could be like helpful in like identifying what you spend time on what's important. But also tools.
maybe it could be like 2 different snapshots of the graphs and it's like how it is right now and then with all of those goals that you set for yourself, how do you see your graph looking in 6 months?
Wow.
And then see, so like making that practice and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hope I
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did the graph, like, circle everything, like, drew where I wanted
That's good.
But in certain things.
Cool. Any last bits of feedback? Well, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thanks all. And your voices will be famous. to like 12 trainers who watch
The
this.
only reason I came.
Yeah, totes.